that's the way it is in the industry. So if you're in the business, don't let car owners influence you to say things that you know they want to hear. Have the stamina, and there's a better word for it, but have the guts to stand up and say, if this is my car, this is how I would do the job. And if they're looking for a fast-in, fast-out service, let them take their car someplace else. Because ultimately, you can't do an operation, you can't speed up the operation. Why is there never time to do the job right the first time and always time to do it over? That's a saying that's been around for a long time. Okay, Kevin.
Yes, sir.
In our chat room for Watch Bobby Live, I said we would take calls, so I understand that our questions. We have a question.
We do, from Captain Jim in Nevada. He has a question. He says, I'm paraphrasing, on a cold morning when you first start your car, it idles fast, about 1,000 to 1,200 RPMs. The question is, can you damage your automatic transmission if you shift into reverse or drive before the engine slows to normal idle?
That is a fantastic question. You could, if you had an older car that was looking for an excuse to brake, and older cars, as parts get old, motor mounts, for example, because if you have the engine revving up and you put it in gear, it's going to bam into gear. So yes, that would, for a car that has age on it, not be healthy to do. So I would not recommend doing that. That's a great question. And to that end, when I fire my car in the morning, I fire it first. Then I push the button that overrides the start-stop because I don't like that feature. I push the steering wheel heater because I love that feature. Then I put my seatbelt on, and then I put the windows up and close the hatchback because I always put my windows down to let my car breathe in the garage. And then by that time, the engine has slowed. So, Captain Jim, and for all of you folks out there, I do not use the word never, but I cannot remember when I ever put a car into gear when it was in its fast idle mode. Neither should you. So, how interesting. Now, I see that Joanna and Victor and Jay are on the phone. I'm going to come back from the break and take your calls, but because of time constraints, I don't have time to get in there. So here's what I'm going to do. Is Apple actually building a car? Well, they just registered apple.car domain. And just recently, they registered 3 automotive domains. And so why would they do that if they weren't building a car? They registered apple.car, apple.cars, and apple.auto. Now, these domains aren't actually active yet. They may be for the Apple's CarPlay system, but the bottom line, they've been hiring people away from Tesla Motors and Fiat and automobiles and battery supplier A123 Systems en masse. More when I come back. In the service bay this week is the 2014 Ford Escape. The customer is complaining about poor acceleration and a pinging sound under load. This vehicle features a turbocharged engine where everything works at an extreme. There are no fault codes, but multiple pattern failures about using high-octane fuel for carbon deposit issues are known factors. Using regular octane fuel can lead to even bigger issues because carbon deposits on this engine are a real problem. Our recommendation? New Fuel Pro Complete from Motor Medic. Fuel Pro Complete is a professional fuel system cleaning kit that's easy for DIYers to use. It's a simple 2-step system and takes just 5 minutes. Most fuel system cleaners only clean through the gas tank. Fuel Pro Complete also cleans through a vacuum line, bypassing intake sensors to avoid any potential damage. The result? No more rough idle or acceleration hesitation. Improved power and performance. Visit FuelProComplete.com for more information, including a demo video and port locator with a list of vehicle makes and models.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Waking up can be a chore, but mornings knocking on my front door. Know just what I'll do. Put on a pot of Folgers brew. Mountain grown aroma hits the spot. Helps me give all that I've got. An opportunity to start out smiling and happy. The best part of waking up is Folgers in your cup.
I'm privileged to be involved with Capstone Adaptive Learning, formerly known as United Cerebral Palsy, for over 25 years. Since 1953, Capstone has provided quality care programs for persons with developmental disabilities like autism, cerebral palsy, Down syndrome, and intellectual disabilities. Dr. Sherry White with her team are dedicated to Capstone's clients, and 100% of your contributions stay local to serve those in this community. Go to capstoneadaptivelearning.org to see the difference Capstone makes.
If you're familiar with the Kulseford section of the newspaper, you probably understand this message quite well. You see, in the Kulseford section, everything gets abbreviated. Consonants, vowels, prepositional phrases, the very building blocks of our language are thrown right out the window. And that makes it difficult when you're trying to sell your car. You've got a limited amount of space to work with, and by the time you abbreviate the description of your car down to a couple of fragmented sentences, it sounds less like a car and more like a Bluck sedan with sniffed like new condition lemals. No wonder more people are selling their cars through eBay Motors. They can post unlimited text and photo descriptions, and with a nationwide marketplace, they're likely to sell it for more. Plus, both parties can be covered by eBay's Vehicle Protection Program. Buyers are happy, sellers are happy, and no one's abbreviating. eBay Motors, a better way to sell your car.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to this segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I want to remind you, every Saturday from 10 till noon Eastern Time, I'm all yours. I'm right here. Just consider me your personal car consultant. If you have a question, or maybe you don't have a question, maybe you have a service shop that's really performed well for you and you want to praise that shop, or maybe you would like to know the difference between synthetic oil and conventional oil, or maybe you'd like to know the facts about ethanol and what percentage of ethanol. There are a lot of automotive elements that we share on Bobby Likis Car Clinic, and our website is chock full of information. You can go to carclinicnetwork.com, and I talk about Car Clinic sweepstakes and social media, but it is our website that gives you not only this program, which will be logged and available for you, and we're on iTunes and all of the other social media platforms as well. I'll take a call from Michigan and talk with Mike. He's got an interesting 54.5 mandate. Let's put Mike on the line. Mike, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thanks for holding.
Hi, Bobby. This is Mike. I had a question about the CAFE mandate.
Okay.
I've heard you talk about as we're heading toward 55 MPG.
Right.
Only about a few handful of hybrids right now surpass those 25 standards, the 2025 standards. I was wondering, in your mind, how do you think we're going to get there, and are we going to get there? And how do they currently kind of measure the mile per gallon average there?
Well, the actual miles per gallon is a multiple of formulas, and I don't know specifically how each one of them are measured. For example, the E miles is when you've got a hybrid that gets 60 miles per gallon, 60 mpg E, is different from a gasoline engine that gets 38 miles per gallon E. But it is an average, and the average has to do with footprint. And Mike, were you familiar before? You remember what a Monroney sticker is? The sticker that comes on a new car that you read the window and it gives you the information, the emissions and the MPG and see, we interviewed recently Ian Callum from Jaguar, and we talked about the new X series of Jaguar, and he said, we talked about MPG and other factors, and he talks about NOx and about emissions, and it's more emissions per mile. So all of those factors play into what the new cars are doing. And I'll give you an example. When GM makes, and they make, I call this, for lack of a better descriptive, they make a go-kart that is legal for the street in certain areas. Now, it's a 35 mile per hour automobile, but it's an all EV vehicle that only runs 35 miles per hour. When they sell these, like a golf course community, now it's for on the road, so it has all of the wipers and brake lights and turn signals and to make it legal, and it's a licensable and must be licensed and insured vehicle. The reason that GM makes this, and I don't know how many they sell, but every time they sell one of those cars, they get credits. So it has a lot to do with credits toward the 54.5 mandate that you mentioned, and that mandate, as I remember, is 2025, I believe is the date on that. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. It is.
So another way that manufacturers are working to meet that goal is to downsize and downspeed the engines, and a good example of that, a prime example, are your four-cylinder EcoBoost, your EcoTech from General Motors. Those engines are smaller, smaller displacement, smaller engines, lighter weight, and yet they deliver, because of turbocharging, they deliver the same MPG or superior MPG as their predecessors. And a good example of that is Ford's three-cylinder. The Fiesta engine is a three-cylinder engine, Ford's first, and they won International Engine of the Year 3 years in a row. Now, little, I don't know what your background is, but little do people know that's not a U.S. engine. It was an engine designed for Europe. And they brought that engine to the United States for gas mileage and to help meet that. They being Ford Motor Company, and I'm not singling Ford out here, but I'm just familiar with Ford. Ford, as you know, has the aluminum F-150 this year that's 732 pounds lighter than last year's, and delivers, I think, 29 miles per gallon.
Wow.
And so you say, well, how does that fit into 54.5? When you look at the fleet, and then you look at, and we've interviewed a lot of folks that are the electrification of the fleet, which means for GM, we'll shift gears now and talk about GM. GM has the Volt with a V, and now they're in the process of making the Bolt with a B, and that Bolt is going to be I think a 2017 car, probably come out in 2016 or late 15. I'm not sure when they're going to hit the showroom floors, but the bottom line is it's an EV that has a 200 plus mile per hour range, and when you've got a car that has a 200 plus mile per hour range, you could probably get 900 miles on a tank of gas.
Wow.
And the way you do that, if you're traveling cross country, is in fact, I believe that you could probably go across country and figure you got 3,000 miles on a tank of fuel. That's kind of a play on words, but when you think about it, you drive the distance you want to drive during the day. Let's say you drive 200 miles, and then the engine, of course, it has an extended range engine, and that engine, for that, I want to shift gears back now and go to the Volt, because I know specifically about that engine, and I want to talk about what I know about. The new 1.5 liter Volt engine for the next gen Volt is not an engine that GM just reached up off the shelf and put into the car as a generator. They did that, or you may not know, they did that with the Volt. But with
Did not know.
They did. They put a 1.4 gasoline engine that they took off the shelf, and I don't know what it was for, but I'm sure that we could find out. It was already there, and so they put that in the Volt so they could get extended range for the Volt. Well, when they came out with the next gen Volt, they created an engine for that specific use. It's a purpose-built engine, and it's a 1.5. And get this, Mike, it has. That engine in that next-gen Volt has 12.5 to 1 compression ratio and runs on regular fuel.
That's higher from what I understand, correct?
Oh, yeah. I mean, a muscle car 427 Corvette had 11 to 1 compression ratio, and all of us car guys, we thought, wow, this is bad right here. It's got 11 to 1 compression ratio. That is huge. And that's when leaded fuel was around. And if you didn't use premium fuel, or if we used to buy a Sunoco where you could dial in the fuel octane that you wanted. Were you familiar with that era?
Maybe a little bit.
Okay. Well, that is in fact that's where it's funny where fate and history repeats itself, because ethanol and the E15 blends of ethanol, and we're going to see even higher blends. That's where that's coming in, because the E15 ethanol has 88 octane. E10 has 87 octane. E15 has 88 octane, and E30 could be 91, 92 octane, because ethanol has 113 octane rating in and of itself. So what the oil companies are doing, and what does this have to do with your mandate? Everything, because the new car makers must meet that mandate. And what they're doing is they're redesigning and optimizing their engines, their EcoBoost V6 engines, their EcoBoost three-cylinder engines, the Ford Motor Company that I talked about, the EcoTech, the Sky Active, the Mazda Sky Active engine. All those engines use a myriad of devices and designs to produce better torque, higher horsepower from a smaller engine. But here's the caveat: they have to meet emissions. So all these things, you can't just boost the compression ratio, because when you do, you create NOx. And I don't mean like NOx, knock on wood. I'm talking about nitrides of oxygen. You create a toxin, that's emissions. So in order to reduce the NOx, what manufacturers are doing is what GM's doing with the next gen Volt at 12.5 to 1, they're using more EGR, and EGR is exhaust gas recirculation. It's a technology. We'll have to, what we'll do, we'll have to get an engineer here from one of the big three to maybe sit in with me on a segment on a future Car Clinic show, and we'll say, okay, how do you adjust? I don't know that they would tell you. I've asked the same questions that you ask, specifically during my interviews, and some information they're just not willing to give, or they don't want to be quoted, because what we hear today and what meets the showroom floor tomorrow may be different. And
yeah, you're right.
So anyway, that's a fantastic question that you ask, and the phones are all lit up. But I got to move on. But I really appreciate your input and your interest, because therein lies the future. In fact, being green, let me give you just a quick example. And I mentioned ethanol. This coming Monday, Iowa's newest E15 station, which is the higher blend of ethanol I mentioned, it's a Come and Go is the name of it's in Windsor Heights near Des Moines. It's going to sell E15 for $1.99 a gallon from 10 in the morning till 2 p.m. in the afternoon. That's this Monday, May the 11th. And this information comes from the Iowa Renewable Fuels Association, and it says the promotion also coincides with Come and Go's announcement last week that the company plans to add E15 to an additional 65 locations in Iowa and 6 other states over the next 2 years. So E15 is a significant asset and contribution to allow and enable OEMs to make higher compression engines that don't knock because of the high compression, so they run cleaner and they run meaner. They run better gas mileage. So It's really interesting to me. Hey, thanks for your call.
Well, thank you for taking my call, and thank you for the education you provide. It's been great, and we love you here in Detroit. Thank you so much, Bobby.
Thank you so much. I appreciate your call. Nice to hear from a gentleman in Detroit. We'll take another call from Washington. Victor, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Yeah, hi, Bobby.
Hi, sir.
I was just wondering, what is the pounds per square inch in the piston on the power stroke when it's putting the most pressure on the piston?
It is 9 Newton meters. Let's see, not 9. 900 Newton meters. Torque. That's the BMEP. It's called brake mean effective pressure. And there's a company that I hold in high regards. We just talked with Mike in Detroit, and it's called, and I've been to Detroit, to the Ricardo campus in Detroit, and Ricardo engineered. Sir Harry Ricardo really is the gentleman that designed the single engine that tests for octane. And he was a visionary. He and Henry Ford and Charles Kettering, who was GM, and Charles Kettering's the one that actually, Kettering and DuPont, GM and DuPont, founded ethyl, the leaded gasoline additive, mainly because it was a better way that they could add add octane to gasoline. And the only problem was it was lead, and later on, lead is a carcinogenic, and so we got rid of it. But the bottom line is the BMEP, brake mean effective pressure, and folks, that's a fancy term for saying how much pressure can you put in a balloon before it pops. Well, how much pressure can you put on top of a piston and still maintain control of the ignition? And, because Victor, diesel engines have no spark plugs, and the oil that's burned, which as you know, it can be anything from cooking oil to diesel, which is oil. When you compress it, it reaches a certain critical mass, and then it self-ignites. And so in a gasoline engine, how much can we compress before that happens? And if you can increase the break point or the threshold at which gasoline, if you can somehow or other increase that threshold so that gasoline will not detonate or pre-ignite, and there's a great deal of difference there, but still you can control the flame of the gasoline, then you can increase the pressure, increase the pressure, and you can take a little 2.5, look at a STI liter engine. The STI liter engine of the Subaru puts out 350 or 60 horsepower from 150 cubic inches, and it's all about putting more air in the cylinder, and it's a gasoline engine, and you got to use the EGR and those sorts of things. So the pressure on the Power Stroke is measured as torque, and for more information you can go to Ricardo.com or just Google Ricardo, and better yet, Victor, in all caps, Google EBDI, Extreme Boost Direct Injection. And
they have been able to put a pounds per square inch gauge right on the.
Yeah. They can do that. Yeah, that's the Newton meters I talked about. 900 Newton meters. That's the torque of the engine. They can do that, folks. That's all the time. Victor, you have to call again, and Stan is on the phone next week. Same time, same channel, right here on Bobby Likis Car Clinic, folks. 10 to noon. Like us, you'll love us.
This is Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
Denso has a tradition of innovation. Using their OE expertise, Denso products are manufactured to give you the right part and the right fit, first time, every time. Like Denso's new Iridium TT spark plugs. Iridium, in the platinum family, is the most corrosive-resistant metal on Earth, resisting wear and oxidation in the harshest of environments. The TT stands for twin tip, which promotes the largest spark energy concentration and explosion and results in better mileage, more power, and faster starts, all while reducing carbon emissions. Denso's developed a proprietary 360-degree laser welding process which creates a high-quality bond that ensures structural support. With plugs to fit most makes and models on the road, Denso's Iridium TT is designed to last more than 100,000 miles. Denso Iridium TT spark plugs, they're that good. To find your nearest dealer, go to DensoTT.com, and now through March 31st, Denso is offering up to $16 back on the purchase of Denso Iridium TT spark plugs.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Bob, what's new?
Last month I'm in Africa. When this wildebeest charges me, we butt heads and he's history. After I pull my guide from the jaws of an alligator, I dig into some beef jerky. I get heartburn. I take out my Rolaids as I'm fighting off a wild boar. In under 10 seconds it starts working. Then the boar is bye-bye. My heartburn's gone.
Rolaids starts working in under 10 seconds? You expect me to believe that?
It's true. Rolaids starts neutralizing acid in under 10 seconds. ROLAIDS spells relief. Use as directed.
While Johnny Kim was getting ready for the first customers of the day, Someone else was looking at Larger's face for his growing business. At 3 o'clock, while the Curtis family was watching their daughter's soccer game, someone else was walking a prospective tenant through one of their apartment buildings. And while Carmen Delabar was preparing for a fashion show, someone else met with an appraiser about her investment property. You've got a life. We let you live it. We're realtors. Real estate is our life.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 3-minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Bobby Likis Car Clinic begins at 6 minutes after the hour. Countdown to 1 minute mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 30-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Countdown to 10-second mark. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, mark. Welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic, live via ABC Radio Satellite Services. If you have a car question for Bobby, call now at 1-800-264-5454, toll free from anywhere in America. And now, here's your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome to this edition of Bobby Likis Car Clinic. I want to share some information just came across my desk. While more and more teens and 20-somethings are forgoing driver's license, the most recent trend holds true for pretty much all age groups, and this is according to the University of Michigan researchers in a new report examining changes in driver's licensure in the United States from 1983 to 2014. Michael Civic and Brandon Schott of the Transportation Research Institute found a continuous decrease, I think this is very interesting, in the percentage of those under age 45 with a driver's license. Even the proportion of American ages 45 to 69 with driver's licenses have declined overall since 2008, following a 25-year rise. I find that so interesting because we're looking at a declining number of driver's license, and we're looking at autonomous cars. So are we indeed going away from owning and driving our own automobiles? That's great to ponder, but in the meantime, let's talk about the car that you have. Let's talk about today. Let's talk about it now. Coming up after the break, call 888-227-2546, and let's talk cars. I'm Bobby Likis. Great show for you coming up. Like us, you'll love us. Time to go to the Car Clinic inbox. Scott writes, Bobby, the engine in my Land Rover overheated, so I performed a radiator flow test and found poor circulation and a bunch of stop leak in the radiator, which I assumed the previous owner added. I decided to replace the engine, which I'm proud to say I did myself. But that engine ran too hot also, by about 20 degrees, so I installed a new thermostat. But even with the new parts, there was minimal change in temperature. After 2 more replacement thermostats, I went with your advice, used a Stant Superstat, and the problem was immediately fixed. I noticed that the Superstat was much closer to the design of the original part, and that the Superstat was heavier than the cheaper ones I purchased. I really could feel and see the difference. Thank you, Scott. Stant Superstat is our choice and the choice of professional installers everywhere. Visit Stant.com for all the advantages of the Stant Superstat. That's Stant.com. Denso's Iridium TT spark plugs are revolutionary, delivering superior power, economy, and endurance. The TT stands for twin tip. It generates the largest concentration and explosion, which means increased vehicle power. Iridium TTs also deliver better fuel economy and faster starts, all while reducing carbon emissions. And they're designed to last more than 100,000 miles. To find your nearest dealer, go to DensoTT.com. And now, through March 31st, Denso is offering up to $16 back on the purchase of Iridium TT spark plugs. This vehicle maintenance spotlight is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. Nothing's more important than your vehicle's brakes. Though there's no substitute for scheduled maintenance, also be on the lookout for signs of trouble, like your car pulling or a shuddering steering wheel. Trust the professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts to help you choose the brakes that are an exact fit for your vehicle. Brands you trust like Brake Best Select, and Wagner Thermoquiet at guaranteed low prices. O'Reilly Auto Parts. Better parts, better prices every day.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Another lending success story from LendingTree.com.
Car dealers like playing games. They play percentage points, they play markups, but I don't like playing with my money. So I got my auto loan through LendingTree.com. I filled out one simple form, a marketplace of banks and lenders competed over it, and I got 4 offers back within hours. After all, the car buying game is a lot easier to win when you're holding all the cards.
LendingTree.com. When banks compete, you win. For additional information and state license disclosures, please visit our website located at LendingTree.com.
Hospice isn't a place, it's a face. And Regency Hospice delivers more faces to you and your loved one when life matters most. Faces of nurses, nursing assistants, social workers, and chaplains. Regency's skilled, compassionate professionals deliver comfort and individualized care. When that time of life comes to you, Regency Hospice will be there for you. Go to regencyhospice.com for more, including Hospice for Heroes Veterans Recognition Program.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
Okay, let's get started with today's broadcast because I'm chomping at the bit. This is going to be a tremendous show because I'm going to have fun and you're going to have fun, and we're going to talk about a fun thing, and that's your cars. And cars they certainly bring me a lot of pleasure. I love a clean car. I think everyone loves a clean car. I'm sure that not everyone loves to clean their car, but that's where I think probably I and a lot of car guys like me are different. Because we truly do enjoy driving the car. The problem is you clean a car, you get it all perfect, you put it in the garage, and then you go in, you take your shower, and you say, okay, I'm going to take my car out. Maybe it's the next day, whatever. And you get in the car and you sit, and overnight, I know this is strange, folks, but it's a fact. Overnight, some amount of dust from the garage or just the air, maybe just 5 or 6 little on the hood, collects on the hood. So you get in the car and you say, what is this? I just dried this car, I just cleaned it and what have you. And if you're like me, you get out and you dust the car. So what I need is a clean cleaner environment.
Sterile.
Sterile.
Bobby, it's a sterile garage.
Oh, and online this week, a friend of mine sent me. It says you got to have this house. In fact, it was Jim Blows in Camden, Canton, Georgia, Atlanta, Georgia, and he sends me this picture of this house. He said you got to have one of these. And folks, it wasn't a house. It was a garage. It looked like a house, and it had picture windows, and it was filled with Ferraris. And I said, I'd like to see the house that belongs to that house. This segment of Bobby Likis Car Clinic is brought to you by O'Reilly Auto Parts. And if you're not an O Rewards member yet, what are you waiting for? Now you can sign up online at orewards.com. You start earning $5 back for every $150 you spend. Visit orewards.com and become an O'Reilly O Rewards member today. It's fast, it's easy, and it's free. Let's take a call from Jim in Michigan. I see that Landon is returning a call from a conversation we had recently, so that's going to be interesting, and I'll invite you to call. Ted will take your calls at 888-227-2546. Jim, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, I'll comment before I ask my question on your statement. You want a clean car, where I got my oil changed this week after owning the car a year. Uh-huh. They said anytime you want, bring in your car and we'll wash it for you for free. Now, I want to say you want to keep the customer.
Well, to that end, Jim, I always wanted to put a car wash in my shop, and when I built my own shop in 1975, I wanted to build my own car wash and of course there's a big expense there, but hats off to that establishment, because it truly clean cars, years ago. It's not so prevalent today because cars are made better and the joints and the rubbers and what have you. But I will tell you that years ago, when we had more rattly cars than we do today, I would advise people never to buy a car in the rain because a car that's wet or just been washed rides better? It does, because all the joints are lubricated, no rattles, no. And your son works for GM on the assembly line, or did?
You remember well, pal.
Yeah. Hey, what can I do for you today? How you doing?
Okay, I'm doing pretty good. I had my Malibu for 1 year. We didn't drive much because of the extremely bad weather in winter, and which wrecked the roads in Michigan.
Yeah.
We only had 2,408 miles on it. And the only reason then that they would oil change it is because it had not had its first oil change for a year.
Right.
My question, I'm going to try to make it simple so it won't take up any time. They said, now you could go in at the end of winter, but if you don't have 2,000, they really say, why don't you wait it out, because you're running synthetic oil. What can customers do like me we usually keep a car 10 to 15 years. If we're only going to drive low mileage like that, is it going to wreck the car to get a an oil change once a year?
Well, that's a great point, and to that end, number one, they mentioned synthetic oil, and yeah, it did come with it's a 2013 Malibu Dexos, which is a synthetic oil, which that's a good point for all of our listeners to and on Watch Bobby Live, our viewers to understand that if you're going to run oil longer, then you need to start with an oil that's better to start with. Not that some conventional oils, there are some great conventional oils out there, but when it comes to standing up to heat or standing down to cold, and when I say standing down to cold, I'm talking about an oil's ability to flow when you first fire it up. And for you, that's more important than the hot protection, because you drive so infrequently that your engine has time to sit, and sits a lot, and all the oil, except for a film of oil, drains off the parts. So there are some pieces and components in that vehicle that don't get properly lubricated until after it's running, because its heart doesn't stay running like ours does. It only starts and pumps oil after the engine's already moving. So there's no problem changing the oil, but definitely you want to put it on a birth date, or put it on something that is easy for you to remember, and you can celebrate the oil change and maybe the wash job and what have you. Not that you're going to wash it once a year, but the bottom line, that's a good idea. And to that end, and gentlemen, you and I, you've been a loyal Car Clinic fan for years. If you remember, I've talked about one of my cars and changing the oil annually because I don't drive it often, and I use a Royal Purple synthetic. Well, lo and behold, this year, Royal Purple has a 1 year, one oil change pledge. So for your information, and they have some more technical, I won't go into the technical, but why don't you go to royalpurple.com and take a look at their 1 year, one oil change pledge, and get the bottom line. And the extended bottom line would be 12,000 miles. I think that's 1 year or 12,000 miles. And then they always, as any aftermarket company would and should, say 1 year, one oil change pledge from Royal Purple, or whatever your manufacturer recommends, because they can't make the rules. Your manufacturer made the car. The irony there, and before I let you go, is the oil change indicator on your Malibu can run 9,000 miles or it can run 22,000 miles, and really has nothing to do with what's in the oil. It has to do with algorithms. And, well, I figure that, this is GM. We figure that if you ran the car at such and such a throttle, at such and such a RPM, for such and such a speed, then your oil life is used up. I mean, it makes sense overall, but specifically not. So 1 year, one oil change pledge by Royal Purple. And congratulations on the shop that gives you a free wash. I'd love to be able to position to do that. I just may do that just for grins. Hey, always good to talk with you today, and always thank you for your call.
And happy birthday to your 40-year-old daughter. Ours will be 40 in 2 years.
Well, my daughter Misty will be 40 Monday. Today, my oldest daughter is 41. They're a year and 2 days apart. And I know Tony says don't say that on the air. Hey, what are they going to do? I wish them happy birthday. They're going to shoot me?
Considering you're on your way up there shortly.
Well, that may be. Okay. Hey, Jim, thanks, and appreciate your kind words.
Anytime, pal. Have
Okay,
a good
buddy.
day.
Nice guy. He knows cars too. He lets on like he's calling me for advice, but his son works for GM, and not only on the assembly line, but is one of those assembly line bosses, if you would. Let's go to Landon from Missouri. Landon, welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Yes, sir. Last week you recommended I do a
compression test.
Compression test because I have a rough idle.
Right.
Okay, number 1 cylinder was 101, number 2 was 100, number 3 cylinder was 95, and number 4 was 100.
Well, this was after like 5 or 6 pumps.
Yes, sir.
Well, that's extremely low.
Is it?
Yes, sir. Yeah, 135. I mean, any cylinder that after 5 or 6 pumps it won't pump 135 is suspect. I can't remember any healthy engine ever pumping less than 135 to 40. And it's been a long time since I've personally screwed a gauge in and ran a compression test. Well, anyway, but let's just say that you've got some wear, or let's say you've got a really
got
low.
120,000 on it.
Well, still, 120,000. It should actually pump more compression. If it was healthy, if your engine were healthy, it would pump more compression at 125,000 than it would at 1,000, because it has less room in the chamber because it has carbon on top of the pistons, coating the valves and coating the combustion chamber. In fact, in a drag machine or in a car. Not drag machine, but in an engine where the size of the engine is dictated by the rules and regulations, which is in every racing category that I can think of. You have to make sure that there's no carbon in the cylinder, because they'll actually use a CC method and measure the compression ratio in that respect. Got to take a short break, Landon. Stay right there. Come back, and you too, Jim. I'll be back. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Of all the races in which Americans enjoy competing, the one that we all can win is independence from foreign oil. The American ethanol industry is not only significantly stepping up the pace today, producing an estimated 13.9 billion gallons in 209 ethanol biorefineries in 29 states, but also helping to pave the way tomorrow for standalone or greenfield and advanced and cellulosic ethanol biorefineries. Scores of ethanol technology companies are already into the demonstration phase of production, proving that technology to convert everything from corn stalks to grasses to garbage to algae are viable. I'm Bobby Likis, calling all technicians with 20 facts about ethanol. Brought to you by the Renewable Fuels Association. Drive to ethanolrfa.org. History's full of automotive breakthroughs, like the electric starter in 1911 and analog brakes in 1985. Now, Shell is proud to introduce another automotive breakthrough, Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline, featuring an innovative additive package with patented technology. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline protects against all 3 main types of engine performance threats: gunk, corrosion, and wear. In conventional engines, Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline cleans and protects intake valves and fuel injectors. In modern engines, it works in extremely hot engine temperatures to resist the breakdown of cleaning agents and protect against performance-robbing gunk. Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline, proven in industry-standard tests and recommended by BMW M Series. Don't give your engine just any premium gasoline. Choose a breakthrough. Choose Shell V-Power Nitro Plus Premium Gasoline. Learn more at shell.com/US.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
Telephone tip.
From Geico Auto Insurance.
When calling Geico to switch your car insurance, you will not need acetaminophen, naproxen, indomethacin, ibuprofen, a cold compress, an on-call acupuncturist, or any other pain remedy. In 15 minutes, you could save 15% or more. If it were any more painless, you could do it in your sleep, which is theoretically possible since we offer complete 24-hour service. Call 1-800-947-AUTO, 1-800-947-AUTO. Geico Direct, the sensible alternative.
Some original thinking by Starbucks barista Frank Botex.
What I love most is getting customers to smile in the morning. Starbucks is just a place to come and relax, kick your feet back. I mean, it's a second home. Starbucks is now in the grocery store, and what better way to just become your own personal barista at home? You go to the grocery store, pick up some coffee, take it home, let the aroma take over your body.
Your favorite Starbucks coffee, at grocery, at home, at last.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Delighted to have you join us. Just remember that every Saturday from 10 till noon on your local AM and or FM radio station, yours truly is right here. Just consider me your personal car consultant. Also, you can watch us and tune in globally at watchbobbylive.com. Again, that's watchbobbylive.com. And folks, for those of you who are familiar with Bobby Likis Car Clinic, as you know, my ASE certified technicians and I test products before I ever talk about them on the air. And last week, I installed and tested a K&N high-flow air filter on my Jag. Well, actually, the Jag takes 2 air filters, so you know the Jag's seriously power and performance hungry. If you're on watchbobbylive.com, you can see some photos of Jeff Jumper, that's Car Clinic's ASE certified technician, installing the K&N filters. And later today, check out youtube.com/Bobby Likis, that's Likis, for the installation video. As you'll see, installation took less than 15 minutes, including covering the fenders and loosening all retaining screws. And there are 2 air boxes in my Jag, so there are about 16 screws. So I taking the filters and replacing the filters inside and then resecuring all, still less than 15 minutes. And here's what I really admire about K&N products. The fitment was perfect, exact to OEM specs. The OEM, that's car maker specs, except that the K&N filters were more streamlined in appearance and much better quality than the factory's original equipment. Performance was some better under moderate throttle, but given the engine's variable cam phasing, folks, it's difficult to tell by the seat of the pants just how much better the performance was. However, under aggressive throttle opening, I felt significantly more power. No doubt, K&N filters flow more air into the engine than the factory paper filters. Now, the torque feels significantly improved. This is best recognized during the mid-throttle high-load condition where the cams and the timing work so well together with the increased airflow that the K&N filters provide. The Jaguar's 5-liter V8 engine produces an advertised 385 horsepower, but the 380 pound-foot of torque, that's what you feel in the seat of the pants. And the MPG, I normally get 15.5 in town. The current tank is delivering 16.4, but I'll recalculate at the next fill-up and do 3 or 4 fill-ups, and so that I'll have a better idea of MPG. But I'll tell you, having a high-performance luxury car, well, wait a minute, high-performance luxury car? No, that's not an oxymoron, not with a Jag. The car is a daily driver. For a car guy like me, that's really important. I'm extremely aware, and I want you to know that I use every electronic option that was installed on my car to my specs. And to that end, I'm specifically aware of transmission shift timing, torque delivered, RPM, and road speed versus throttle opening. And although my seat time with the twin K&Ns is still short, the vehicle's overall performance has been upgraded by this installation. And speaking of installation, for the installation video, check out youtube.com/Bobby Likis later this afternoon. Now, let's take a call from Earl in South Dakota. Earl, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Glad to have you join us.
Well, thank you, sir, and thank you for taking my call. I drive a 2004 Chevy half-ton two-wheel drive pickup.
Okay.
And on my way back from Florida, a wheel bearing went out, so they put the assembly in. But when he took the pads out, there were heat cracks in it. How does heat cracks affect braking?
Well, heat cracks are demonstrative of overheating conditions. I don't know, Earl, that if you had a set of pads that were heat cracked and another set of pads that were not, that you would feel the difference in normal driving. I doubt it. However, it's when you really need brakes and they start to heat up where these cracks, because wherever you've got a crack, that means that that area where the crack or the crater, and let's just to paint a better picture, think about crashing waves and how much surface there is of the water, and then think about a smooth lake. The smoother the water, the more surface you cover. And the same thing is true for the brake pad. So if you've got a brake pad with cracks, wherever the crack is, there's no contact. And what would really, that's not really a problem that we see with brake pads. What we see is people run the brake pad down either until it goes to metal, which really is bad, or in most cases there are sensors. And a lot of cases, there are squeal tabs that give you that squeal. But let me ask a question. When you had the bearing go out and you replaced the pads, you looked at the old pads and they were cracked, heat cracks, right?
I didn't replace the pads. I wanted to wait until I got home. I just put the wheel of the bearing assembly in. Okay, well, make sure that when you do, and I would replace the pads, make sure when you do that you machine the rotors, because I talked about the smooth lake versus the ocean waves. If you put when you put a new pad on a rotor, even if the rotor had, let's say, 15,000 miles, which is not a lot of miles, that rotor is not flat. In fact, because there are ridges in it. So for every ridge, there's a valley, and for every valley, there's lack of contact. And to that end, now this is not the case for today's technology because the pad material is different than it was years ago. And the rotors are better than they were years ago as well. But here's the bottom line. In the Porsche handbook, the owner's manual stated that the first 150 miles you drove that car, you were bedding the brakes, which means that, and I know for years in our service shop, when we replaced the brakes on a vehicle, even machining the rotors, which we did, without exception, and I would say not never, but rarely without exception, would we replace a pad without machining the rotors, so that you have a smooth surface, so that you have more surface area, so you have better brakes. To that end, in the proper way at that time, which is no longer in effect. So for those of you technicians out there, heed this information. To bed brakes, you go out and you go 30 miles an hour and you come to a stop, and you do that 6 or 8 or 10 times. And why? To increase the temperature of the pad slowly to bring it up to operating temperature, and that cures out some of the bonding agent. You could call it glue, but it's really not glue, but it's a bonding agent within the material. And for years, that was the proper way. And then finally, Earl, for me, I met a gentleman from Akebono. I don't know if you've ever heard of Akebono Brakes, Akebono. But Akebono, and of course, there are some parts companies that have the Akebono line aftermarket. They're on the premium side, and they make another lower-priced brake as well. But what is significant for you to know with that particular brake line is that it was Akebono that brought ceramic brakes to the OE makers in 1987. So all the ceramic brakes that every auto parts store sold, or every other manufacturer says, "Oh, we have ceramic," which are great brakes. Actually, that was brought to the States by Akebono. And I know this because I spent time with this gentleman, and I had materials, and I had the pads, and I'll tell you something else that was important. This company wasn't just in the brake business; they made the machines that made their brakes. That's just not. It's like saying that Chevrolet makes the fender, and they make the metal, but they don't make the metal. They don't make the oil. They don't. Parts. Going back to Henry Ford days, which was really what a revelation that was. assemble parts. So that's what manufacturers do. That's what OEMs do. They assemble parts. True, they're still in the engine business. They still make the engine in their own shops and in their own labs, but they buy seats from other companies. Johnson Controls is one of the largest suppliers to Ford of their complete dash assemblies, and I've been to the factories. When you watch them assemble a new car, these parts are assembled in as one big piece. And of course the dash has many hundreds of pieces. But anyway, getting back to your brake pad, crack heat checks are a sign of heavy use, and the pads should be replaced, but not until they're worn. I mean, you don't have to worry about. You don't have to go out and today after the program and put a set of pads on. But just when you do, get a premium set of brakes and then machine the rotors. Will you do this yourself?
No, I'll take it to the shop.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, that's better. And make sure that the shop machines the rotors. And when we machine rotors, you attach a rotor onto the machine, then you got, blades that machine it. But after we machine the rotor, we'll use a sanding disc that rotates to put an omnidirection swirls on the brake pad and on the brake rotor, and that helps to stop squeal. And there are also squeal tabs and anti-squeal materials on the back of the pad. And just another piece of information, I know this is more information than you asked for, but everybody has had a squeal for a brake. The squeal doesn't come from the brake pad on the rotor.
Oh, hey, can I ask you one quick thing for the Pope?
Sure.
On that assembly, they offered me a 1-year or a 3-year guarantee on it. Is there honestly a difference between that, or were they just pushing for more money?
There would be a difference on. Wasn't on the same assembly though, was it?
Same assembly, yeah. They offered me a 1-year warranty, or they had one that had a 3-year warranty, and I was just wondering if that was I was traveling at the time, so I was just wondering if that was some kind of gimmick, or is there really such a thing?
Well, the answer is it depends, and I'll give you an example. We are an authorized Bosch service center. Bobby Likis Car Clinic Service Pre-Repair is an authorized Bosch service center. So whatever repairs that we do for an automobile, you can go to any Bosch service center across the states, and that part will be guaranteed for a year. We are also a Napa Auto Care Center. And if you use, for instance, the Napa Auto Care card, and we don't have one, we don't offer that because we have enough credit card machines in-house. But if we did use that, then they will guarantee the same part 2 years. So it's partly marketing and partly the backing of the company that supplies parts to the aftermarket, and that's really where that all starts. Hey, back with your calls. Don't go away, folks. This Tire Maintenance Minute is brought to you by General Tire and its complete line of winter tires, including the Ultimax Arctic, Grabber Arctic, and Grabber Arctic LT. Visit GeneralTire.com for more. It's cold outside, and you're not the only one feeling the chill. So are your tires, because every 10-degree drop in temperature causes a 1-pound decrease in tire pressure. The difference between an 80-degree summer day and 30-degree winter evening is 50 degrees and 5 pounds of underinflation. Underinflated tires wear rapidly, decrease fuel economy, and affect safety. So if you're in mittens and haven't checked your tire pressure since your tan faded, now's the time to give your tires some fresh air, including your spare. General Tire's Ultimax Arctic has 270 degrees of multi-angle sipes and thousands of biting edges to maximize traction in any direction. The Grabber Arctic and Grabber Arctic LT feature General Tire's innovative Duragen technology. For more, visit GeneralTire.com.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
You can call them used. You can call them previously driven. You can call them anything you want. The point is somebody, maybe even a dozen somebodies, owned the car before you did. And before you put down your hard-earned dollars for the car, you deserve to know exactly where it's been. Get a vehicle history report from Carfax.com. They'll give you the real history of any used car.
visit carfax.com or ask your dealer for a Carfax report. Don't buy a used car without Carfax.
I, Dennis Walker, pledge allegiance to the roof. I know it'll be clean. I know it will be comfortable. And I know that if the phone rings when I'm in the shower, I can just let it ring. For I have voicemail. Red Roof Inn, one room, under budget, with free cable and local calls for all.
98% of Red Roof guests are so satisfied with their visit, they plan to come back. Now that's not just loyalty, that's allegiance. For reservations, call 800-RED-ROOF.
We're a land of cynics. We don't believe anything anymore. You know why? Because we've been told we've won $1 million, that it's new and improved, that it slices and dices, that our favorite singer is still alive, that we'll be prosecuted if we cut off the tags, and of course that everything is backed with a 100% money-back guarantee. So when we hear the words customer service, we don't believe it. Travelocity isn't surprised if you're a little skeptical when they say they have excellent customer service, and that there's actually a pleasant face behind this website, a living, breathing person with a supercharged computer full of answers. Someone who's willing to help when you get lost, and most of all, someone that will actually pick up the phone when you call with a question or a concern. Customer service is just another example of how Travelocity puts you in control of travel. Chances are you'll never have to use it, but it's good to know it'll be there if you need it. Travelocity.com. Go virtually anywhere.
And now back to Bobby Likis Car Clinic and your host, Bobby Likis.
And welcome back to the Bobby Likis Car Clinic program and the host, me, Bobby Likis. Fancy that. 888 Car Clinic is the number. I would invite you to get social with me as well. We come to you on Facebook and Twitter and YouTube, simply facebook.com/Bobby Likis, Likis. Friend us there. And, you know, like us. What is really great about social media is that you can learn more, and there are things that we share with you about automobiles that you may not catch all of it, but each program is available to you, and you can simply go to iTunes. Is that right, Tony? Go to iTunes?
Yep, iTunes, go to the store, and then just search Bobby Likis, and they're all sitting right there.
Yeah, and that's Likis, and you can subscribe, and your phone or iPad or computer will download, even when you're not there, it will download the program so that whenever you want it, you've got it. We had one gentleman to call. He said, yeah, I'm out working on my car, and I've got the headphones on, and he had downloaded 44 segments, and he just let them run at random. And he said it's really some cool information. Anyway, we'll take your calls. Jan will take your call at 888-227-2546. Now's the time to get in. So let's go to South Dakota and take a call from Irvin. Irvin, welcome to Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Thank you so much for your patience. Appreciate you holding.
Yeah, thanks for taking my call, Bobby.
My pleasure, sir. What can I do for you?
Well, this is pertaining to a 2001 Chevy Cavalier with 212,000 miles on it.
Okay.
What's happening is its track off light comes on in the dash, you know, one of those lights that you're driving, usually in slow city traffic. And when that happens, it starts shifting real hard and kind of wants to cut out. The motor wants to die. And I wonder if, what do you think that would be? But in order to get it to go off, if you shut it off,
reboot it.
5-10 seconds, it's okay. And then, of course, it won't do it every day, but it's kind of irritating.
Well, I could see where it would be. There are reluctor rings. There's a speedometer, to put it in lay terms. There is a speedometer for for each wheel, for the ABS. And these speedometers read the speed of the wheel, which is really kind of neat because that's also what part of when a vehicle has a tire pressure monitoring system. there are two different types of tire pressure monitoring systems. One's a direct system where you've got a sensor inside the wheel that has a pressure and measures a pressure and sends a signal, through Bluetooth to the car, or radio wave to the car.
Yeah.
Then there's the other indirect TPMS tire pressure monitoring system that uses the speed of each wheel to determine which tire is low. And you say, well, how does that work? Well, the flatter the tire is, the shorter the tire, so that little short tire has to run faster than the other tires to keep the same speed. So once you've set the tire pressure, and this has to do with your question, I'm just using this so that you can better understand how it works. Once you set the tire pressure equal, that means all the tires are equal. And once you push the reset button, you or somebody that does a TPS system, then it calibrates all the speeds of the wheels. So when one gets low, it takes about 6 pounds, that's the threshold, that tire has to turn faster to keep up with the other ones. So that means that speedometer says to the computer, the right rear is really having to chase the tail here. It's having to chase the rest of the car. So it knows that tire is low. The same thing is true, this same onboard computer boxes, there are 25 of them on average car today, knows that there's a speed issue. And so it tells the engine and tells the transmission, tells the body control module. It shares all its information in layers, and literally in layers of electronics. The caller that we had a couple of calls ago that had a problem, and the independent shop that he'd gone to said, you'd have to go to the dealer to have this reprogrammed or have this repaired. It's because some of these layers of technology, Irvin, are proprietary. The software. Now, this information is available to the aftermarket, but at a cost. And a lot of aftermarket shops do not invest in the cost, so they just send those particular odd jobs to the dealer. In your case, if you have the traction light off or on, it means that the car thinks that one of the tires is losing traction. But if it's not, and you know it's not because you're not in the rain and you haven't spun the wheels, obviously, then that tells me that one of the speedometers is sending an erroneous signal to the computers on board. So the first thing that I would do is I would monitor the speed sensors, and that's done by using it has to be a sophisticated scan tool, and that will check the sensors. And if you've got let's say you have a reluctor ring, and a reluctor ring is nothing more than a fancy word for a speedometer on the wheel, and this ring is pressed onto the axle, front, rear, whatever. If that ring, for instance, let's say that it broke, it hadn't fallen off, but where it breaks, there's a gap in it, just like if you had a ring on your finger and it wasn't 360 degrees. It was had a break in it. Every time that break would come around, or at random, depending on how slow you were going. That's what triggered all this with me, in my technical mind, what little there is there. Tells me that the reluctor ring or the speedometer in one of your wheels is telling the computer that it went to zero because there's a break in it, or there's a break in the wire where it plugs in, or in the receiver. So that's what the first thing I would check is has the ABS light ever come on?
No.
Has not.
No.
Well, I would think that it would, but then again, the traction control, you see, controls the engine, because when you lose traction, it's drive-by-wire, it shuts that engine down so that you as the driver, and you can't react quickly enough. That's why it helps you. So those are just some of the thoughts. This is a very technical question that I've tried to explain, and that really is hard to do. and needless to say. But so for you, for what I recommend there in South Dakota, is to find a shop that has a scan tool that is compatible with GM, and they're specific. And I think it's Tech 2 is what it's called, if memory serves me correct. So just make a note of that, Irvin, when you talk to a shop and ask them if they've got the GM Tech 2 scan tool. Okay. And they may say, well, yeah, we've got the Tech 4. There could be a Tech 6 out by now. But the bottom line is your vehicle will require specific testing to take next steps. I started to use the word, and I try not to, diagnostics. Diagnostics implies that you put a box and hook it to your car, and that tells you everything's wrong with that car, and there is no such thing as a diagnostic box. We have testing devices that perform specific tests like we do when we have some sickness. We get blood work, we get stress tests, we get all sorts of, even an eye doctor will check the pressure in your eyeball. Those are the things that are tests. Are they part of the diagnostics or diagnostic procedure? Yes, but they're individual tests. And the reason that I'm adamant about bringing this point up, you need to know, and you as a listener to Car Clinic need to know, as a car owner, diagnostics really should be thrown out of the wording in the automotive service business, and testing should be inserted, as is the medical industry, because only after you test specific items on a car can you determine whether or not it is defective or within specifications or not. Is it part of the diagnostic procedure? Sure. But it's a more precise, true, applicable, real-world term that, folks, you need to know about. And Irvin, that's the overview and the inside scoop of what you need to know, which means that you have to take your car to a service shop and have it tested.
Now, you say I have to make sure it's a GM Tech 2.
Well, a Tech 2 or some compatible, something similar. Something, it has to be and here's why. Because you're going to go into the architecture of the software, and you can't go to a parts store where they plug in a $35 tool and read the codes. You don't need someone to read the codes in your 01 Cavalier. You need someone that, after they read the codes, can go into and test the modules, and in order to do this, they've got to get through the gateway. And the gateway is a protector that says, wait, you're not allowed here. We have secrets in here. We have safety issues in here, and if you're allowed in here, you can mess around with something and cause it to go bad, and we would be liable as a car maker. So that's why it's really all about safety. It's mostly about safety. Some of it's about proprietary protection of online and of automobiles.
Okay, when you shut the ignition off, what is that doing? Is it just
it's like rebooting your computer. You unload the RAM. And so some of the memory goes away. In fact, in pre-96 model automobiles, you could clear the code just by disconnecting the battery. Well, you can't do that today. It takes a scan tool to properly clear the codes in your vehicle. And I'll tell you, it's a real issue for service shops when car owners try to take the cheap way and fix their codes, or have somebody clear their codes, because when you clear a code that makes the light go off, you also clear some of the history in the computer. So just because the light's not on, there's a history of fuel trim. There's a history of operations, just like your medical records. Your car carries around its own running records that can be extracted, unless somebody went in there to say, I'm going to put your light out for you and do you a great job, and they not only put the light out, they erase the history. Now you got to start all over again, and that's dollars and time, and you can save time by doing it right the first time. You understand what I'm saying? Okay.
Yeah, I understand you.
Good.
I just have one more thing. I pulled into O'Reilly Auto Parts store, and the guy come out and he says, "I'll put a little." Well, he had a little gadget in his hand. He hooked that up, and he said it was. He didn't start the car up. He just put that on, hooked it up, and turned the key on. But he didn't start it, and it showed a transmission problem.
That is yes. That is because the transmission module gets its signal from the speed of the vehicle and the speed of the axle and the speed of the engine. So you could have an engine RPM problem, a monitor problem. You could have the traction control. See, all of those things, again, which goes back to what I said, all of those things are connected. Those things, all the electronics are interconnected for safety, so that the ABS works, so the traction control works, so the engine control works, so the speedometer works, so the cruise control works. I mean, if you've got all this information and you're monitoring all this information, if the left, just like a large corporation and a small company like ours, the better the right hand connects with the left hand, the better job, just like a winning award team. It's team effort. And if you're not talking to each other, you're not performing. And if the vehicle didn't talk to one another, none of this would work.
Yeah, you said something about keeping all the tires up to pressure, air pressure.
Yes, sir.
The right air pressure.
Yes, sir.
And that's what I'm pretty particular with that.
Yeah.
And,
well, I was using it as an example of the speed sensor on each wheel.
Yes.
Yeah. Hey, thanks for your call, and the best of luck to you, and I'm glad you called, and some of the information that I shared with you over this too long a call was because people need to know, car owners need to know, and shop owners that are tuned in to Bobby Likis Car Clinic need to know how to communicate. And Irvin, I've given you buzzwords. I've tried to and attempted to, in my best manner, to explain how the system works. So when you go in and you talk to a technician, they're not speaking Greek, because you know about speed sensors, you know about body control module, you know there's a cruise control module, you know there's a transmission module. You can have a problem with a transmission module as well. So there's a mystery there that can only be unraveled and solved one step at a time, one test at a time, for proper diagnostics. Hey, folks, every Saturday from 10 till noon, we bring this program to you from Car Clinic's Center of the Automotive Universe all-digital studio, located right here on the Gulf Coast of Florida, reaching across the nation and the globe through Watch Bobby Live. I'm Bobby Likis. Like us, you'll love us. I'll see you next week.
Bobby Likis Car Clinic. Bobby Likis Car Clinic is a copyrighted presentation of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated and may not be reproduced or rebroadcast without the express written approval of Car Clinic Productions Incorporated.
In the service bay this week, a 2002 Buick Century with intermittent misfire and stumble under load. The customer's already changed plugs and ignition coils along with fuel injectors and intake gaskets, but has the same problem. Our diagnosis? Heavy carbon deposits on the intake valve, causing fuel starvation and uneven power contribution from different cylinders. Carbon acts like a sponge, absorbing fuel and causing uneven fuel distribution and uneven power. The fix? New Fuel Pro Complete from Motor Medic. It works on both GDI and PFI engines. That's direct injection or port fuel injection. Dealerships charge upwards of $100 for this service, but Fuel Pro Complete from Motor Medic costs a fraction of that. And it treats both the air intake and the fuel system, and it's easy to use. You don't have to disassemble air intakes or worry about harming sensors. Visit FuelProComplete.com for more information, including a demo video and port locator with a list of vehicle makes and models.
You're listening to Bobby Likis Car Clinic.
P. Outfitters, I'm Tina. How can I help you?
I'd like to place an order.
Great. Which item?
The cotton roll neck sweater, large.
Okay. Periwinkle, Loden, or caramel?
The caramel, please.
The what?
I'd like it in caramel.
Oh, the caramel?
Yeah, that's what I said, Tina.
Actually, you said caramel when it's pronounced caramel.
Can't we just call it yellow?
No.
Everyone knows the best part of a Milky Way. They just don't know how to say it. After all, it's our caramel.
It's caramel.
Ugh, that makes a Milky Way great.
You start my morning, you stir in my soul, you warm my heart, make me feel whole. Your aroma calls me, starts my morning, happy morning. Your name is Folgers Mountain Grow, now you're here.